Hi, I'm Cynthia Schiller. Please like and subscribe. We're going to talk about a viewer's question who was talking about monkey branching. They want to know more about hoovering and narcissists wanting to return to their old supplies. Also, why narcissists like to be friends with their exes. Great questions. Monkey branching. What exactly is that? That's when you have seen like monkeys going from branch to branch. They don't let go until they secure the next branch. And that's kind of what the narcissist does in a relationship. They're in a relationship. They start getting distracted. They latch onto a new supply, but they don't really let go from the initial supply until they've secured this. Narcissists love to do this. A lot of times they'll juggle both for a while till they decide which way they want to go, and then they let go, and that's when the discard comes in. That's a way for them to never be alone. They always have to have a supply. And when I say that, narcissists can be alone per se, as long as they know there's a supply, whatever their supply of choice is. So I had given an example of, if I was going to be a superstar ice skater, I might be alone to practice because my supply might be off being the best of the best. So narcissists can be alone, but as long as the supply they're going after is secured. So in relationships, though, that's why a lot of times they'll cheat, because they're kind of juggling the two till they know which way to go. A lot of times as the initial supply, there's some baggage. It's not our fault most of the time. With reactive abuse, sometimes we can add to it. We do have to take accountability for that, but we're reacting to the abuse that we've had. So the narcissist sees this shiny new supply, and that's why it's so easy for them to discard. Sometimes it feels like it's out of the blue, but it's a temptation that they wait until they know it's easier, more accessible, and just like a fresh start. That's what's so odd about narcissists is, they can do a fresh start with no remorse. They don't really miss people. Even with death, they don't really miss people. They'll miss the supply, whether it was mom's cooking or mom or dad's finances, things like that. It's not so much the person, because they don't really connect with the people on an emotional level. They might connect with people on an intellectual level, or they might be happy with the supplies that they're getting. But if something easier or tempting that can give, whether it's a greater supply or less hassle, because narcissists like things to be easy. They like it to be their way. They don't like to think about other people's feelings, thoughts, moods. It's all about them. And talking about the hoovering, that is when they like suck us back in, kind of like the Hoover vacuum cleaner. We can do a reverse Hoover where we bring ourselves back into the relationship. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But the hoovering, why does the narcissist come back? They left us. They didn't care about us. Often they'll tell us they never loved us. They'll cut us down like we were worthless. And I had one ex, he's like all my buddies are going to think I'm crazy because I'm back with you. And I'm like, why would they think that? He's like, well, because I told them you were crazy. And it's like, so they do those smear campaigns. Sometimes they'll risk coming back. And then other times it's their pride that gets in the way. So they will come back when, whether the new supply doesn't pan out, isn't coming through with the supplies that the person wanted, has too many demands. If the narcissist sees that they're more moody than you were, or more needy than you were, they might come back. A lot of times though, is they've already devalued you, so they do come back. They can snap back into the devaluation stage a lot easier because their brains, just like our brains, are flooded with things right now. We're trying to heal. Their brains are going to bring back some old memories. They're just going to be like triggers. They have a hard time of letting go of grudges. That's why they can often split you as good or bad. There's almost like no in between. It's odd how it's like a light switch that goes off, that they're just like, oh, time to move on, time to come back, time to move on. They don't always think things through, because they do have that young emotional state. That's why a lot of narcissists are impulsive. and so, same with some other mental illnesses, is they just want what they want. So they'll go with the flow. If they can cheat, they'll do it if they can get away with it. Sometimes we feel that they're faithful if they have like a sexual addiction or porn addiction. It's real hard for them to be faithful. They might do it until it's easy not to get caught. So some with, sexually transmitted diseases, that might be a phobia of theirs. So they might not even risk it. But is their heart faithful? Do they emotionally cheat? But narcissists will hoover when they feel like it, because they think that we're always going to be there for them. Or they think that they can schmooze us back into being with them or guilt trip us back into it. The reverse Hoover, I know some of you are missing your narcissist because we had that trauma bond with them. We're more positive people to where we always feel like there's a solution. We always feel like we can work this out. The narcissist is like a negative kind of person. Even sometimes they might come across as positive, but overall they're negative. They don't feel worthy, which is hard to sometimes see because they portray themselves in a different way. So they do have low self-esteem. That's why they need so much supply. They need to stay busy as distractions. And they just need to be adored, or your vulnerable ones need to be the victim. They need to be coddled, and they like feeling power over you, where you're stepping on eggshells, because it gives them a sense of power, because they didn't have power when they were growing up. And the other question was, why do they want to be friends? Part of it is you guys, you do have some past, maybe they're bored and want to have a conversation. I'm sure you guys were great at conversations. That's why you were in a relationship. But sometimes it's so they don't have to take accountability. They feel less guilt if they're friends with you. Like, if I screwed you over, why would you still be my friend? So it takes away some of their guilt, because they can feel guilt in some aspect. Maybe it's so the family members from the extended family are like, that's really sweet that they're still getting along as friends. Maybe if you have children together, they want extra parenting time. So if they're friends, it's like, hey, would you mind if I had the kids extra? And it's a way to manipulate you. Be real careful on that. Or so they can be like, hey, we got the head of household and only one of us can claim it. I think it'd be fair if we split it. And just to be your friend, to kind of get whatever they can get out of you still. It's manipulation tactics. It honestly is. Narcissists can enjoy time with people, but it's on the superficial level. So if it goes anything deep, whether it's discussing like some major things, like hopefully this never happens, but if your child was handicapped for a little while and needed extra care, is the narc really going to come through for that? Or are they going to kind of back off and put it on you? Sometimes they will come through, but it's so they're seen as the hero. Each narcissist is different. Depends on the severity of what they've gone through, which of the 5 of 9 traits, maybe they have all the traits. So that affects how they handle things. So the topics that you were looking for, the monkey branching, just swinging person to person, doesn't matter, who it really is. And some of you can start to, I guess, get either jealous or upset at this new supply. And this is the hardest thing to grasp, is it wasn't you. There was nothing wrong with you. There was nothing that you didn't do. It was just something easier for the narcissist, something tempting. It's just another person, and sometimes, they might downgrade. That's because it's easier to, keep somebody with low self-esteem. They don't have to worry about that person being taken away or stolen away from them as much. If it is somebody on par with you, you know, the narcissist gets like an ego boost over from that. Narcissists, if you ever notice, they'll say something like mine, my first one, I was pregnant with his child and we weren't married. He didn't want a child. He didn't want a child. So we broke up. So he could start dating somebody with a kid, not his kid, but a kid. So he can't date me because he doesn't want to have a child, which is his. So they say conflicting things all the time, you know. So you know, if you ever go through something like that, be careful, because I know some people think about abortions and things like that, and they'll do it for their partner. Just make sure and just be aware of that story. Because if I had done that, that's against what I would do. Whatever you guys do is up to you. But to sacrifice something to me that was important to make them happy would have been horrendous for me, because we're not even together. So be careful in the choices you make, whether it's moving or quitting your job or things like that. Make sure it's what you believe in. And because a narcissist will say whatever they want to say to manipulate you, whether it's to get out of child support or caregiving or freedom, but then it's all lies. It had nothing to do with whether or not he wanted a kid. Maybe he didn't want to feel off the market. I don't even know. But they'll say whatever to manipulate you. So be careful on that. And they will return to their old supplies. It's people repeat patterns. History repeats itself. So they've done studies on where people often will move back to their place of origin. Not everybody does that, but statistically, a lot of people go back to their kind of like roots. And that's kind of what the narcissist does. It's just safe. It's like safe. It's easy. It's comfortable. I know what it's all about. I don't have to hassle trying to schmooze somebody else and going above and beyond. They can give us little breadcrumbs because they feel that we're just going to come back to them. And being friends with an ex, it's comfort. I mean, it can be comforting to have a stockpile of friends, but the depth, how true is it? You know, they will break plans. They don't follow through on things, and sometimes they do, but it's very inconsistent. And narcissists tend to have a cycle, and sometimes with this new supply, it might be a longer cycle because they've learned how to use those tricks a little bit more. But it's not always like that either, because they don't learn from their mistakes. That's why I have said, like, the second and third marriages, you have your first marriage, the divorces on average are around 8% in the, or 8 years. They start 7 years, and then by the time that they file, it's like an 8-year cycle. And then the second marriages have a higher failure rate. The length, from what I've been able to find, there's so many different things. Sometimes it can be quite lengthy, but there's a higher divorce rate for second marriages, and then even higher for third marriages, because people don't learn from things. So you're thinking about this new supply, it gets worse each time. Is it going to get better? Chances of them making it, 67% of second marriages end in divorce. I believe it's 76, maybe 72, 76 or 72% of third marriages. So, you know, blended families have a higher risk. And there's all these different things that play into factors on whether or not they're going to make it. There's age difference and education and religion, and you know, blue versus red states seem to have a different divorce rate, different occupations. So there's no simple formula on knowing, is this new supply going to work out? How much does that person want to put up with? Do they have any mental illnesses or triggers? And are they tempted? What is their outside sources of temptation? Because they also say too, and also the divorce rates of their parents. Do they come from divorced families? There's a higher statistic if their parents divorced and remarried the same unit. That's a higher divorce rate for the narcissist, or subsequent relationships away from that initial, like the siblings from that family. So I would love to have you guys let me know if you have any other viewer topics. I hope that answered your question. Just be aware that the narcissist doesn't change. They might change their tactics. They might change how they handle things, but it's all manipulation. Their heart doesn't change. Their techniques might change. Their desires might change, but it's all self-serving desires. So give yourself a big hug. Know that you're worth it. Know that it was not your fault what happened. And I want to do a little bit of research on ADHD, because I started reading a little bit where like trauma can cause that. So if you guys can comment below, have you felt a little either scattered or harder to focus? What are some of the after effects that you have felt? Because the narcissist has also gone through some things. We've gone through it later in life with our narcissist, but the narcissist had it. And their attention span on sometimes their jobs, mine were pretty good. Mine stayed with their jobs. Like, I give them credit. Both of them are very professional in what they did, hard workers. And I wonder, maybe it's from my perspective on what I've seen, maybe it's the vulnerable who kind of have a harder time settling. I'll do more research on that. I don't want to kind of lock into that yet. But viewer topics are always welcome. One-on-ones are available. Please like and subscribe and share if it can help somebody. Feel free to message me. I love doing videos.